Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the implementation panel. My name is Paul, and let me get straight to the good news. This is the last panel we'll sit through this week. Of course, it comes with some bad news. This is the last panel we get to sit through together this week. We gather for this panel to ask one of the most difficult questions in the ICN. How do you use ICN? It's difficult not because there's no answer, it's difficult because there are so many answers, and we'll get a flavor of that with our large panel today, and thank you to our speakers for joining us. It's a question, how do you use the ICN, that we ask regularly to help ensure that the ICN and its work remains relevant and has meaning to the members and their needs. All right, before I sit down and turn to the real core of our panel, the stories from around the world, 2 quick points on the context for today's panel. First, on content, we all know that ICN is an informal, voluntary, non-binding network. So what do we mean by implementation? For ICN, it's when members choose to use the ICN work product that it's relevant to their needs. So implementation efforts within the network refer to promotion of our work. You've seen it on display all week. We offer support to members who are interested in learning more about the ICN's work, learning from each other, and for their own consideration when they establish new practices or update existing ones. So today we're going to have stories that are shared from members that made that choice to use ICN resources, and we're grateful for them. All right, on the format. 20 years ago, Messi played football in Barcelona. The ICN met in the Americas, specifically Merida. There, Randy Treitel, one of the founding figures of the ICN, first integrated home country proverbs en Espanol into his panel remarks. Much like Randy himself, they were a clever and gracious tribute to the host agency and became conference tradition. Today, Messi plays football in the Americas, Miami specifically. But the ICN meets in Barcelona, and we will continue the tradition of ICN icon Randy Treitel and honor our host with inspiration from Spanish proverbs. All right, our first inspiration as we gathered the panel came as a caution. Mucho ruido y pocas nueces. Much noise and few walnuts. To ensure we have sufficient walnuts, or in this case, implementation stories, we assembled the largest plenary panel of the week. In the best of circumstances, ICN implementation stories are consistent with the Spanish proverb, quien a buen árbol se arrima buena sombra le cobija. Lo siento. One who is near a good tree will be well shaded. In other words, surround yourself with the best and it will make you better. Now, even in the not so best circumstances, we are reminded that cuando las barbas de tu vecino veas pelar, pon las tuyas a remojar. When your neighbor's beard starts to peel, put yours to soak. In other words, we can learn from each other's mistakes and experiences. All right, enough proverbs for now. We'll have a few closing. But let's turn to the core of our panel, the speaker's stories, perhaps the core of the ICN. Mindful, of course, that it is Friday, our last day together, I encourage us all to ponerse las pilas. Put in your batteries. In other words, look alive. Anne-Marie, why don't you start off? Tell us about your experience in Jamaica.
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to be here to talk about Jamaica FTC's use of the ICN work products. Attendance and participation in the annual ICN conference have always spurred a renewed interest in the work of the ICN and serve as a reminder to us to keep abreast of the work products and to integrate them in our everyday life. We have been using extensively the ICN Market Studies Good Practice Handbook, the recommended practices for merger analysis, and recommended practices for merger notification and review procedures. Market studies have become a major part of the work of the FTC in Jamaica. Over the years, there has been a decline in the number of complaints from businesses and consumers, and accordingly, we have shifted our focus to doing more competition advocacy and market studies. A critical part of the market study process is stakeholder involvement for providing information, getting feedback and comments on preliminary findings, and for acceptance and the implementation of proposed policy changes. This area has been problematic for us at the FTC, and we have been using the handbook to better manage this process to gain insight into how best to improve stakeholder engagement. In particular, how to avoid potential conflicts and to ensure that market studies are done in close collaboration with key stakeholders. The handbook has been greatly beneficial to us, and it has assisted us in setting realistic timelines for completing studies, for proper planning, and in developing a stakeholder engagement strategy, which I must say is working quite well, not perfect, but we have had significant improvement in our stakeholder engagements. In relation to recommended practices for merger notification and review procedures, we have been using those recommendations to guide the development of our pre-merger notification framework. We're in the process of amending the competition legislation to include a system for pre-merger notification, and the ICN recommended practices have been very instructive in that regard. Having the views and best practices of several competition authorities in one document provides a comprehensive frame of reference for all the issues that we must consider. I must add that we did have a consultant to assist us in this process, and the consultant has also used the ICN recommended practices, so we know that we're in good hands. And so we feel quite confident that we will have an effective pre-merger system when that comes on stream. So thank you very much, ICN, and thank you, colleagues from other competition authorities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. It's great to hear that example. I love that example of the market studies. We tend to think of the merger recommendations, which you mentioned, but we have great work on compilations from around the world of market studies were just updated this year. Let's turn next to El Salvador. Gerardo, please tell us your experience.
Thank you, Paul. El Salvador's competition agency has a yearly budget of nearly $2.3 million. Thus, the ICN constitutes an important source for reinforcing the technical capabilities for our 52 colleagues, because the team gains first-hand awareness of international experiences and recommended practices on competition matters. And our budgetary shortcuts have been eased by funding opportunities such as the one allowing me to be here to share our experiences in this plenary and in the BOS early this morning. The mergers and the cartel frameworks have allowed us to ask peers if they could share public information with regards to different matters being improved through a competition law reform. And we have reached more easily the relevant contact and received feedback in a shorter time span. ICN publications are reviewed as background reading or support bibliography within enforcement, mergers, and advocacy functions, and for administrative and executive work. For instance, the chapter on relationship between competition agencies and public procurement bodies of the Anti-Cartel Enforcement Manual was used as bibliography in our advocacy project to promote competition principles in public procurement in El Salvador. The experiences shared in webinars, workshops, and this annual conference are frequently considered in our internal discussions, including those related to improving our competition law. Considering limited resources, we appreciate and use every opportunity to participate virtually, especially because in the last couple of years, the turnover rates of our agency staff have increased, and at the same time, our budgetary constraints have affected our capability to fund training opportunities abroad. The update ICN training on-demand modules and the ICN webinars allow our employees and interns to quickly grasp the fundamentals of competition law practice with great quality and at low cost. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Gerardo. It's great to hear the ITOD there. Again, another great resource you may not think of beyond our recommendations, but it's an online lectures from experts from around the world. Let me next turn to Amadou and your perspectives.
Thank you. Just like Jamaica and the previous speakers, we use ICN in our everyday work, starting with the work products. I think some context. As a new agency, I think, especially if you're from Africa, where competition law and policy is not taught in most universities, having the ICN resources is quite vital. So we use the work products in our everyday life. The first time we started using was the assessment guidelines. And that was what we used in our advocacy work when we started. And then we started making use of other products. But it's a network. So you get to meet people, and that's also quite beneficial. I can cite examples like South Africa, COMESA. Not only do we use the work products, but we interact with them. We know how we talk to them on a daily basis. We know how they use the ICN products. So we have that formal network with them. Also, the webinars, we find them to be quite useful because we always make use of the webinars, and it's Zoom Live in our training rooms. And also, most importantly, the special projects that we have ongoing right now. Food, very vital to our part of the world, so we also make use of the special projects, and that's about it. So we pretty much make very good use of the work products, the networking, and the webinars.
Thank you. You know, I love that you emphasize the networking, because as much as we want to focus and talk about work product, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten off an ICN call and then heard about the connections that are made after that call. You hear something from another agency that you didn't know about or wanted to find out more about, and that's sort of maybe the untold stories of how ICN has had an impact across our agencies. Let me next turn to Q from Vietnam.
Yep. Dear esteemed colleagues, today I would like to share some experience from the VCC, Vietnam Competition Commission, in utilizing ICN work product and resource to enhance competition advocacy and enforcement in Vietnam. And here are some way in which VCC may utilize ICN work products. First, we realize that international best practice, including ICN work in competition legislative or policy change, can be beneficial for developing countries like our country. In particular, during the process of reviewing existing legislation and policy, we conduct a comprehensive review of current competition legislation and policy, and we identify areas that may need improvement in competition policy and law enforcement. In addition, we can use ICN work in advocacy to increase public awareness and to inform the business and consumer about the changes and benefits of fair and effective competition. And the second, ICN provide a well resources and guidelines, best practice recommendation that have proven to be valuable in our competition enforcement and advocacy efforts, particularly in line with ICN recommendation. We have revamped our advocacy and outreach strategy to more effective. And the ICN guidelines in promoting competition regulation and policy have provided valuable insights leading to a more compelling and persuasive communication in the importance of fair and competitive markets to business, consumer, and other stakeholders. Regarding leniency program, ICN best practice in this area have informed our regulation and enforcement mechanism. Our leniency program is now more robust, adding in detecting and dismantling of anti-competitive practice, particularly in Qatar. We have capitalized on the ICN resources and training opportunity to strengthen capacity and expertise of our staff. ICN commitment to capacity building has been instrumental in strengthening our team knowledge and skill, ensuring that we are well prepared and effectively enforce competition law and regulation. By adapting our practice and rule in line with this recommendation, we are aligning our approach with global best practice and ensuring that our efforts are both effective and in harmony with the international standard. And third, our agency also utilized ICN Cartel Enforcement Manual, and this manual had provided a guidance and best practice for our agency and investigator in handling cartel enforcement case. Similarity, ICN murder guide have played a crucial role in improving our understanding of merger and acquisition, market dynamics, and competitive effect. And the fourth, our agency also find ICN training on demand, ITOD, module very useful for international training. And currently we find that this module cover a wide range of topics regarding competition and practice, including cartel, murder, abuse of dominance, market study, and advocacy. And we recognize the important and continued learning and capacity building for our staff also. And the fifth, we can share experience through ICN workshop and seminar. Our commitment to international collaboration is exemplified through our active participant in ICN workshop and seminar. This event have been instrumental in facilitating the exchange of experience, best practice, and insight with our international counterparts. And they provide a platform where we engage in discussion in various aspects of competition policy and enforcement, fostering the global perspective. In conclusion, the ICN has been a valuable resource for our agency, provide a wealth of guideline, report, and best practice recommendation, which are vitally useful for members of our competition commission also. And we as we look to the future, when we remain dedicated to the principle and idea upheld by the ICN, and through continued engagement and cooperation, we aim to further enhance our competition policy and enforcement practice to ensure the consumer and business in our jurisdiction benefit from fair and competitive markets. Thank you.
Thank you, Q. Let's turn next to Eswatini. Sheila, please.
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, colleagues. With the Eswatini Competition Commission, we use ICN products, mostly the merger guidelines for analysis of the phase 3 mergers. We have one that we completed last month, which was approved with conditions, which involved a supplier of broiler chicken feed who acquired a chicken grower and retailer of fresh, frozen, and packaged broiler chicken products. So we used the merger guidelines to undertake a comprehensive analysis of the potential coordinated effects as well as the foreclosure concerns that may arise from the verticality. And from the analysis of the potential coordinated effects, we were guided by the ICN merger guidelines, and the conclusion on coordinated effects was that there was no evidence of coordination in the relevant markets. So the guidelines were enable us to conduct a more detailed analysis. Of course, the merger was approved with conditions due to the input and customer foreclosure strategies in the upstream and the downstream markets, because there was concern for that. Secondly, the Commission and the Kingdom actually is undertaking a process of developing a comprehensive competition policy framework that integrates other economic policies adopted by government that are established to create opportunities for the formation of new businesses and trade to stimulate the economy and support the Kingdom's development goals. So currently a project team has been comprising of the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, and the Commission has been established. And the main objectives of the national competition policy are for the Kingdom to be in line with international best practice, which advocates for the primary competition law of the Kingdom to be supported by a national policy on competition, to enhance market efficiency, promote consumer welfare, and support economic growth. So the policy will also strengthen competition law and enforcement mechanisms to prevent, detect, and punish cartel and other hardcore or per se illegal activity. So the policy will also enable, and the legislative review will also enable to deter unfair and misleading trade practices, and also developed a comprehensive policy on competition that integrates other economic and sector-specific policies and laws established by the government to ensure the consistent application of competition policy and law in all sectors of the economy in order to effectively support the Kingdom's economic and development goals. And attendance at the ICN conference enables us to see that there's a wealth of information that is available as the policy is being put in place and as legislation is, new legislation is being enacted. Thank you.
Thank you. Rana, can we next turn to Egypt and hear from you?
Thank you, Paul. Actually, in Egypt, we used on a regular basis the ICN work, especially the practical tools and the ICN recommended practices. However, one of the most important documents that we have used recently was the ICN merger notification and review procedures. Actually, as you may know, in Egypt, for a long period of time, we didn't have a merger control. And last December, new amendments were introduced to the law, and the ECA was provided the jurisdiction and the power to conduct ex-ante merger review. So when we were preparing our draft law and when we were designing our notification thresholds, we relied a lot on the ICN recommended practices regarding the merger notification. So basically, the document set the recommended methodology that might be followed by the competition authorities when designing their notification threshold. And actually, the methodology is very simple and very comprehensive. We can summarize it to 4 steps. First, the competition authority has to define and to choose the type of indicator, whether it will rely on objective criteria such as turnover or value of assets, or subjective criteria such as market shares. And then the competition authority have to delineate the scope of its threshold, whether it will be domestic or international or both. And then the authority must design the system itself and the provision itself, and whether it will be a list of cumulative conditions. For instance, combined turnover will be required with individual threshold or not. And finally, the authority must give a value to the threshold. And for instance, in Egypt, we choose to adopt a regression model. It's a very simple regression model, which rely on the GDP and the threshold value. So I think that when designing, in our experience, when designing the notification thresholds, we relied on the ICN recommended practices. It was one of the sources that we relied on. It was very helpful because it showed us and give us an overview about the pros and cons of each option. And we choose the better option and the most convenient option for the Egyptian market. Thank you.
Thank you, Rana. What a great, just compelling example there of the influence and inspiration of ICN work. Thank you. Let me last turn to Gunnar to have your perspective for us.
Gracias. Sí. Aló, ahora sí. Bueno, les decía, agradecer primero a la CNMC por este maravilloso evento. And Paul, I think the first implementation story from the Andean community is that we are able to participate in the ICN event this year because we were out of the league for some time, and one of our peers agencies, COFESE, put us in touch with the ICN so we can be able to participate in this event. So I think international cooperation is working, so we are very successful of that. And from the Andean community, you know, the General Secretariat of the Andean community is the sub-regional competition authority from its member countries that are Bolivia, Ecuador, Colombia, and Peru. So since COVID-19 has changed radically the ways of our enterprises of trade and make business, our enterprises in the companies in the Andean community are more constituted by SMEs. So we were very concerned about our legislation, that it has been out of date because it is from 2005. And as the General Secretariat, we, with our members country, are in process of updating our legislations. So in that modification, we are taking into account ICN recommendation, especially in cartel procurement, and the other main issue we are involving our legislation is commitment and in international and administrative cooperation, because we have to be in touch with all our members agencies to have an effective defense and promotion of competence. In other way, we also trying to develop new tools that help us as sub-regional to protect the SMEs, because to prevent that economic barriers can be imposed to these operators by technological enterprises. So in that way, we are trying to develop a platform to monitor markets that can be used for all the members, that can allow us to detect possible practice and conduct that attempt against free competition. And also we are seeking to establish in the Andean community an forensic laboratory that allows to also analyze all the data and to be able to be with the international standards and be at the same level of the international agencies. And finally, we are seeking international cooperation. That's why we are looking up for signing MOUs or bilateral agreements with some of the agencies that we see they can share with us their experiences, training us, and made the Andean community an successful experience. And well, please don't be surprised if in the next months we will contact some of you to get in touch and work together. Thank you very much.
All of our panelists, it's always wonderful to hear such a great variety of ICN stories and the impact that the ICN has. Now look, we get it, you're sitting in the audience, you may be thinking, you're a little skeptical that implementation is not always easy, Paul, I know that. No es pan comido, you might say. It's not like bread eaten or a piece of cake. And it's not always feliz como una lombriz, happy as a worm. But indeed, Spanish proverbs remind us that quien tiene boca se equivoca. Whoever has a mouth makes mistakes, and lo siento for that one. But I prefer to think that our great panelists today no tener pelos en la lengua. They do not have hair on their tongues. They are honest and direct. They don't mince words, and they gave us such great examples. So I appreciate that. So we've reached the end of our proverbial advice, if I can say it that way. Unos por otros, la casa sin barrer. In other words, if we choose to go it alone and ignore a mess, the house will never be swept. After all, el mundo es un pañuelo. Did I get that right? Pañuelo? The world is a handkerchief. A cute way to say it's a small world, or perhaps it's a small ICN community. Thank you for your time. Finalmente, muchas gracias a Lucía, Teresa y su equipo. Todos ustedes son unos anfitriones fantásticos. Thank you.